Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast, a show on the human stories behind indie game development. And this is a very special episode. It's a Footnote episode, the first one of the year. And if you've been following the podcast for a while, you know that my footnotes are my bonus episodes, extra, around a topic rather than a person. And for this one, I wanted to get together with the founder of Women-Led Games, an initiative that showcases and highlights amazing female developers from around the world, Charmaine Duff, who's joining me for this one, and you'll hear from her really soon to talk about the issue of gender diversity and just in general of inclusion and reaching parity in the industry, because I believe there's still a lot more to be done. And since this is coming out on International Women's Day week, I thought this would be a very fitting theme indeed. But before we go on, I want to shout out to my amazing patrons as usual: Finoku, Zagini, Fishbum Dev, and Peleg. You guys are amazing, and I love having your support every single month. If you too want to support the show and get some extra benefits, like, I don't know, early access to episodes, go to patreon.com/theindiediarist and just join one of the tiers. But let's get into this footnote now, and please, dear game industry, name a woman. Alright, hello everybody, and welcome to a new episode of the Indie Diarist podcast. This is a footnote episode, which means it's going to be a very bonus episode. It's very special around a special topic. And actually, speaking to you today as usual is your loyal Indie Diarist and host, Anthony L. Wolf, writer, narrative designer, and senior content manager in social media. But with me today is also a very special guest that I connected with, I think late last year. Char, correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. And please say your name, because I don't know if I've been saying it correctly. So she's the founder of Women-Led Games, and please, over to you. Please tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Charmaine Duff. I go by Char because, it's easier to write.
Yeah.
I get a lot of misspellings. But yeah, I'm the founder of Women-Led Games. I founded it last year after the Women's Day Steam sale event got canceled. There was just a lot of women that were kind of bummed about it, understandably. And so, I wanted to create an event. And in that time, I really, really wanted to do a showcase like what I'm going to be doing in a couple months. But I only had a few weeks to turn something around. So, the most I could do was get all the games together, put them up on a website, and, give keys to streamers and just kind of make a weekend out of it. But I have since had a year to actually create a showcase, and that will also be throughout a weekend. It'll be a 3-day event. So I'm really, really excited.
Yes, and I'm very excited about that one too. I will definitely talk about it on the on my social channels. But we're here for something that is, of course, very dear to you. And the topic of today is, well, the name that we chose was, and I am going to stick to it because I like it, Dear Game Industry, Name a Woman.
Yes, that was actually inspired by a woman who created an article of the same title. Yeah, because of all this stuff that happened last year, so...
A little bit of plagiarism there for the Indie Diarist, so let's just ignore it and go on. So, but yeah, this is just because there is absolutely a critical need for increased representation in the gaming industry, and not just for women, but just for all underrepresented backgrounds. But we know that women face very specific challenges too. And so this episode matters to everybody, whether you're a woman in game development, or you're a man who wants to help an ally. If you're from an underrepresented background, anybody working in the games industry should know about these issues. And I wanted to start with the current state of representation, which isn't really great, because from what I know, I think about 30% of game developers worldwide are women or identify as women. So there's clearly a disparity in the industry. Like, there's a very big unbalance, and that is weird because, as we mentioned during our first chats, the player base is just 50%. It's kind of evenly split. Maybe there's going to be a few more males playing games, but there's definitely around the 50% mark. So what specific challenges do women face in game development, in your opinion, based on your experience speaking to other developers, and also based on your experience working in the games industry yourself? Because I remember you're a community manager. So just what are your thoughts on this?
It's really interesting. And I think a lot of it is just really systemic, and having the access to the same networks and the same people who can kind of get your foot in the door, because especially right now after all the layoffs, it doesn't matter like what your experience is right now. It matters.
Yeah.
It definitely matters on who you know. And historically, men have more of those connections. Typically white men have more of those connections than anybody else. And I think a lot of it too is just there's a lot of, unfortunately, there's harassment and things going
Mm-hmm.
on in the industry that I feel like kind of pushes women out as soon as they begin. And so there's not
Yeah.
a lot of retention of women. So we don't see women in higher positions. And when you don't have women in higher positions, you've got less representation. You've got less people that
Mm-hmm.
are looking out for the women that are just coming in. Sorry, my
Mm-hmm.
dog is scratching at the door.
Oh, no
If I have
worries.
to let my dog in.
It's fine. Yeah.
She's very demanding. But yeah, and so there's a lot of little things that accumulate and just kind of make the whole experience harder.
Mm-hmm.
And I could talk about that for hours, but we don't we don't have that long. But yeah.
Well, feel free to talk at length, because we footnotes usually are longer than my usual episodes. So yeah, I do want us to cover this topic in depth. So please feel free.
Yeah, for sure. But I think it's shocking too. It's not just women overall. Sorry, I'm gonna let my dog in. She stops destroying my door. Um, Also, like if you look at the statistics, I just posted about this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of women of color in the industry
Yep.
that stay in longer than 5 years is 0%. Like
Yep.
literally 0% of women of color stay in longer than 5 years, and it's shocking, and it's really depressing, and it's really frustrating because like as I'm not a woman of color, so like in that sense, I don't know how to help out beyond what I'm doing already with the Women Led Games Showcase. But aside from, we need to get more women and women of color and just people of color in general in game development. We need to get them the support they need to stay in, and so they're not like
Mm-hmm.
being pushed out. And just I think it comes down to all of us banding together
Mm-hmm.
and like really really pushing for
Yep.
this, because I feel like there's a lot of amazing groups out there helping out
Mm-hmm.
all of these developers, but I feel like we're also so scattered. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like if we all came together and just like had this big mission to support everybody and just like
Yeah.
really really push really hard for a
Mm-hmm.
while, I think it would help. That's
And
my dreamer talking though.
but I totally agree with your dream, and I think a lot of people will resonate with your dream, because I remember from EGX last year, I mean, diversity was such a huge topic there. Pretty much 1 every 2 panels was about diversity, inclusion of any kind, from people from underrepresented backgrounds, all kinds, and just LGBT community, LGBTQIA plus community, or just female developers, people of color, everybody. And they would take on the stage and speak to an audience who was clearly very open to hearing those things. But what I sometimes feel like is that you're shouting to a crowd, you're speaking to a crowd that already knows those things,
Yeah,
and you're not really kind of changing anything unless they, well, of course they will go back and try and advocate for themselves. But there's like a systemic problem, as you
yes.
say,
Hmm.
and I'm going to reference. I'm going to cite an article that I have open right now, which is from businesscloud.co.uk, which asks, why are there so few female developers in video games industry? And one quote that really stands out to me is, "Women don't feel part of the conversation," and I think that is absolutely true. So, how do you think the industry can better support and encourage women in their careers? Because what you say about retention is absolutely true. All the harassment issues, and how many stories come out every year of buddy culture and just camaraderism at certain development studios,
Yeah.
big, medium, sometimes small. So what are your thoughts on that?
We need more women in leadership. That's the end all. Like they need to be in those positions to be able to make those changes, and they need to not be pushed out of leadership. We need those allies with us that are also like supporting us and defending us when we need defense. I know a lot of people will probably think that it's like, I don't know, silly to like stand up and defend a woman when like
Hmm.
they feel like it's not their place. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, but it absolutely is your place. If you have the voice, if you have the network, and you have the authority, you need to be the one that's standing up and saying, hey, there's something wrong here. We need to fix it. And this is the person I am helping to appoint to fix this. This is the person that's going to be the voice for this. You need to listen to them. That alone would make so much of a difference. But I feel like right now, especially men that aren't of color, like they're just like so afraid to say anything, even when they are allies. They're just like, it's just not my place. Like I was talking with somebody the other day about just the women-led game showcase and like how they could help out. And I don't ask like for like sponsorship money from everybody, right? I just I want them to know about women-led games, and like if they are legitimately interested when they reach out, then like support any way they want to. And
Mm-hmm.
the guy was like, well, I'm a really old white guy, so I don't really know what I could do. And I was like, you are the perfect person to
Yeah,
like you
absolutely.
have
Yeah.
the privileges, you have the voice, you have the network, use them, please,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Yeah.
share and support. And he's like, oh, okay. I'm like, it's
Okay.
not
Well, but
it's not science. It's not.
and as a white straight male, this is something that we talked about in our first chat too, off the record, which was, I mean, as I see myself as an ally in a lot of different causes, and the diversity and inclusion especially. But sometimes it does feel like I'm out of place, because you do, even though I'm a writer, I'm empathetic and all of that, you do feel like it is your fight, but also you're almost scared to talk. But like I managed to overcome this over the years. But I remember this feeling not long ago, where I just wouldn't speak my mind sometimes, because just you're just so immersed in a systemic kind of discrimination that it's just really difficult. And I remember my days at school, and that's the earliest days when these things happen. You just experience sexism and you don't even see it as such. And your friends just do sexist jokes and all of that, and then maybe some of them even mean it, and you don't see the problem because
Yeah.
you just don't know.
Yeah, it's deeply ingrained since we're children.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the old mindset of the woman staying home and taking care of the kid, even if she's working,
Mm-hmm.
the things that happen at home after work, it's usually the load is typically on her, the mental load, even not even
Mm-hmm.
just the physical things that need to happen around the house, just the mental load of how the household is run is typically falls on the shoulders of a woman. So you have all that on top of everything else that you're trying to do in the work environment, and it's really, really rough. But I think it's normal. It's really normal to have those feelings when you grow up in a society like that, where there's obviously divides
Mm-hmm.
when there shouldn't be. And the important part is breaking that cycle, which I feel like our generation is learning a lot about in general. Not just with gender norms and things like that, but like with how to raise your kids and things like that. Like I'm a mom of three that I homeschool while I'm also doing all this, and it's a lot. It's rough, and my kids aren't growing up the same way that I was growing up
Mm-hmm.
at all. Like I was very much a product of the public school system and
Yeah.
the bullying and the craziness, the sexism, the all the things that you're exposed to, and um, very much raised by parents that weren't there.
Oh
So
no.
because work, they're both working, um
Yeah.
and so it's a lot different when you're raising kids completely differently than you were raised, and then also trying to change the world, for trying to change the industry, honestly, for those kids, for when they come into it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really, really where it starts, is you're targeting your audience, targeting these kids and these women that are going to go into games, and that's why I made a showcase. I wanted to target them and show them, look, this is what women are making right now. This is what
Yeah.
you could do. You
This
can,
is possible. Yeah.
yes, you can own
Absolutely.
your own studio. You can
Mm-hmm.
create these games. You can create these narratives, this beautiful art, all this coding. You can do this, and still, you know, my concern when I was a kid, which is really messed up. This is going to sound dumb, but my concern, I had somebody in high school, developers came in talking about game development, how awesome it is, and like, you could do this too. You could go to school and blah blah blah. And I'm sitting here thinking, as a teenage girl, my first thought is like, well, what if I want to have a family? Then that's going to fall on me. And then I won't be able
Oh.
to progress in my career.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that was my thinking. And I know like not all girls are obviously going to think like that, but I feel like a majority of girls probably would, because they're typically the ones ingrained with taking care of things in the house as they're
Mm-hmm.
growing up.
Yeah.
So things like that. So I think, just being able to empower young girls and women that are wanting to come into this industry, show them what they can do, what their potential is, with all these amazing women that are currently making all these games that I'm so excited to share.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good start, and just, making the industry better for them when they come in. Because
Mm-hmm.
it's one thing to show them what they can do, it's another thing to have an area that can actually help them cultivate that and
Yeah.
sustain it. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's another big hurdle that I feel like it's part of our mission, but it's a big one, and it's something that I feel like all of us kind of need to come together and do, and not just the women's groups, right? Like
Absolutely.
all
Yeah.
the diversity groups, all, not even just the diversity groups, like publishers, right now they don't need to be targeting just the ones that are led by men, or there's a lot of amazing women out there looking for publishers and funding right
Mm-hmm.
now. I think last year, I think they said venture capitalists funding for women, like across the board, not just for like game industry stuff, but like venture capitalists funding women last year, I think it was like below 3%. Like,
Mm-hmm. Oh wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
like it's like funding for women is just
It's a
so,
non-existent,
yeah.
really. Yeah. Oh
And
my
it's like,
God.
oh
Yeah.
my gosh, guys, like,
You're absolutely right, and you touched on more than a couple of important points there. First of all, representation, but also there was one thing that you just said, which is, well, it will come back to me. I just lost it. But the one thing that I wanted to say is that I remember, like, I work for a company that values all of these things, and I'm proud to work for a company that values all of these things in my day job. There is and one of our clients works in tech, and they're very passionate about women in STEM. And that reminds me, it's exactly the same thing. Like, women in STEM, they need so much. It's worse than, yeah. It's in STEM, like it feels like such a daunting industry, but actually there are so many women in STEM who are doing great things, and there could be more. There should be more, because they're just not really close. They're not nearly enough. But representation is so important, because when you do say those stories, I mean, Ada Lovelace, one of the first women to ever, one of the first people to ever work on a computer, was a woman. So you could do that too. It's so important to share those stories, because it shows you, as you said, that change can happen. And about the publisher, and that's the thing that I forgot a moment ago, about publishers.
Mm-hmm.
There are two stories that come to mind right now. In my case, one is, I will not name this publisher or this development studio, because I care about my show. But I remember one game came out with two protagonists, a female and a male, and the canon version of the story was from the point of view of the female, but the cover, the box art, featured the male. You may know what game I'm talking about. I know it very well, but they did it because, of course, males, the
yeah.
male protagonist, and so, the male hero, no one's going to empathize with a woman, and so they just did the box art on the secondary story, which is still the story of the game, but it has absolutely no canon power whatsoever.
It's a little
And I
bit
think there's a
misleading
problem there.
marketing-wise, too,
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, and there's clearly a problem there. It's something like, it's just big publishers keep making these choices, and then of course they make the problem worse, because then people who just if you think they didn't relate with a woman before, why would they do it now? That you chose a male protagonist to be in your cover when you could have chosen the other thing. So it's such a huge issue. And the other story that came to my mind is from someone whom you might know, and actually I think you know very well, the developers of Crystalla, Astro Clock Tower Studios. And during my episode with them, which I believe was episode 11, but I might be wrong, during my episode with them early last year, we talked about all the challenges that they were facing when trying to find a publisher for Crystalla. And Crystalla is like an open world RPG and with cats. I played the demo. I love it. It's just amazing. It is shaping up to be a beautiful game. It's certainly something that does deserve a publisher, but they couldn't find a publisher just if they paid money for them. And the problem there, I kind of guessed it, and I asked, do you think you are having trouble finding a publisher because we are a women-led studio? And they said yes, because sometimes we even thought about sending some of our male colleagues to do a pitch.
Yep.
And when I heard that, I was like, oh my God,
yep.
Why would you need to do that? And it was so hard to hear, and so discouraging. And it was kind of it wasn't an eye-opening moment for me, because I kind of already guessed that it was that way, but it was still tough to hear it from a group of women developers from a women-led studio. It's just
you hear it,
insane.
You hear it in the workforce too, as well. I've had friends who have considered shortening their name on their applications to make it appear male, so that they actually get a talk with somebody, and not that they're lying about like what their name is, because like they do legitimately go by that name sometimes, but that's just how it is. Like sometimes like people will go through your application if they seem like, oh, this is a little it's like they look at us like we're little girls or something, and not like adult women with like like probably like accomplished a lot more than most men they interview. And as soon as they see the female name, they're just like, oh, like it's like the accomplishments are kind of like second.
I like to think that when that happens, I mean, you probably dodge the bullet, but at the same time, you don't want to dodge all the bullets, right? Because you might want to.
It's like, oh, can all of these not be bullets? That would be great.
Yeah, exactly. that would be great. And I mean, there are so many issues in any kind of industry, and in game development specifically. I mean, we kind of touched upon it now when I talked about covers and box arts and play, but also I think the problem is also in the player base, honestly. And toxic gaming communities. And the fact, I mean, I do remember what happened when they changed the design of Aloy for Horizon 2.
Oh, yeah.
That was absolutely embarrassing.
Oh no, they made her look like a real woman. How dare they?
And I remember that someone even made a mod to make her look prettier, quote unquote. And I thought that was so embarrassing. Why would you do that? Well, I know why, because there's this systemic sexism, and it's a big problem. So how do you think publishers and developers and people at the top can possibly try and educate these toxic gaming communities a bit more? How can we change the player base, in your opinion?
That's a huge thing. That's just that's like a whole societal issue, not just a game dev issue. But I think continuing to have characters that are accurately representing women is the best way to go. I love that they did that for Aloy. I think they should continue doing that for women throughout the board. And not just women, but like people of color. Somebody was just complaining the other day that men's hairstyles, black men's hairstyles are all the same for like all the characters, and I was looking at it, I was like, yeah, it is. That's really terrible.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see why you'd say that.
Yeah, I've seen that too. When I'm playing games, I'm like, why do they all have the same hairstyles? Like there's a lot more hairstyles. Yeah, I'm like, okay, guys, come on now. Like we need those people in there making those decisions, and the problem is we don't have those people in there making those decisions. And a lot of the women, that are represented in games are typically like through a male lens. Like they're the very strong woman type that, goes through a lot of intense like battles and things like that, which is awesome. I love women like that. I love reading about women like that. I imagine I could be that one day, but that's not the only, that's not the only, we're not just out here angry wanting to take a man's crown. There's a lot more different. There's a lot more facets to women than just being the angry fighter.
And this actually brings me to the next point, which is stereotypes and stigmas, because it feels like as you say, it's just not like that. It's not like women want to take the men's crown and whatnot. You just want parity, equality,
yeah, equity.
And I wanted too, with being an ally. So I mean, there are some stereotypes that I hear this term a lot, Nazi feminists and whatnot, but really, I mean, it's just about, well, when you do advocate for parity and that, but it's just about building a better society, a better future for even our children and people who will come after us, and to live in, and just to live the best life they can have. So what other kinds of stereotypes and stigmas have you experienced or seen, and that you think are worth bringing up right now?
Like in games in general, or just like...
Oh, well, in general, we'd be there a while, but in games, I would say.
Yeah, no, I think just the fact that, like, women are just often really, really written and characterized through a male's lens. And I see it changing a bit, but also there's also like it's like one step forward, two steps back. Like we said earlier, with the man being on the cover for that game, even though like the main narrative is a woman. And just having more representation, not just in the games but in the events as well. We had a lot of things last year where women were just silently pushed out, and I kept telling people this feels like Gamergate 2.0, except it's much more insidious. It's quieter. It's not outwardly, we don't want women here. It's
true.
Just not acknowledging the women. The issue with the PC gamer, 30 years of PC gamer. We're celebrating 30 years of PC gamer, but we're not going to mention one woman that
I remember
worked for
that
us during that 30 years. Or
and actually about that, and sorry to interrupt, but what was your experience like at the Game Awards? Because I know you went there, so what was it like?
So I can gush about it from a gamer's perspective. Aerith is my favorite character of all time.
Oh, Aerith.
And yes, and I had no idea. So like, I need to give a whole backstory. Okay, hold on. This is my origin story into games. This is how Charmaine got into games. When I was in like first grade or something, I was still learning how to read proficiently. I was watching my older brothers play Final Fantasy VII for the first time, and I fell in love with Aerith. She was like, I was like, I want to be her. She is the exact person that I am. I love her. I love everything about her. Of course, we get to that point where she dies, and I was I was devastated. I was like, no, like it was the worst day of my life. And I went to school the next day, and like, bless my poor teacher. I don't think she was even a full-fledged teacher yet. I think she was a teacher's aide. Like, it was her first year with kids. And I was just on the playground, and I was on my knees, and I was bawling. And she comes over, and she's like, Charmaine, are you okay? Like, what's wrong? What's going on? Did you get hurt? I'm like, my best friend died in front of me. She was stabbed.
Oh, no.
And the teacher like freaks out, and she's like, what? And like, so I end up going to the office with that teacher. They call my mom. I think there was a cop in there, and my mom had to come in and explain, no, it was just a video game character. It's not a real person. But I got to go home.
Oh God, yeah.
I got to go home for the day, and my
all right, that's good.
My family, still teases me about that to this day. But still, that was my introduction into like loving JRPGs and just loving narrative in game and characters and the depth of what the stories you could get into that could affect you, not just you, but like the world. Final Fantasy VII was, very much anti-establishment, it was for saving the planet and things like that, like this anti-capitalist, which for the 90s was like kind of like a big,
absolutely
huge message. So that got me started in loving all of that, and so to sit there, however many years later, like over 20 years later, to sit there in the Game Awards and see Aerith on stage and see them debut her new theme song was like, I was crying. I was like, I don't cry that often for things unless like, it's a personal thing, but like content doesn't usually make me cry, but that made me cry.
Of course, it resonated so deeply with you. I can only imagine.
Full circle moment, and I was like, "This is like perfect."
What I wanted to talk about next is your own experience with women-led games, and we have a couple of fun questions that we worked on just before this that we can where we can just show our support to the community. But first, from your perspective, as someone who's working with women developers a lot, female developers a lot, what kind of stories have you heard? Have you heard any story that you want to share that touched you deeply? Have you heard anything that... Oh, and by the way, yes, I do remember your tweet about being Gamergate 2.0 and being a silent Gamergate. And I sat there when I read it and I was like, oh my God, she's right. Because like this is people that are afraid to speak, but they're still doing the same things.
Yeah.
It's just they're not being as overt.
Mm-hmm.
So
they don't want to get canceled, but
they don't want to get canceled.
They'll do it silently then, behind closed doors.
Yeah, exactly. And that's not the kind of result that you want from this. But aside from that, what kind of stories may have you heard? What kind of stories from indie developers may have you heard that you want to share right now, that just to inspire some other people and show that change is possible even?
Oh my gosh. Well, I don't want to say too much because there's going to be a lot of amazing stuff in the showcase that people need to go tune in and watch. But I think just, the fact that despite all the crap that's going on, especially with the layoffs on top of it, this was something that I was hoping for, even though like it's a really, really sad thing that all these layoffs were happening. I was hoping to see, more indie studios pop up this year, and I'm seeing it. And unfortunately, that is like a very privileged thing to say, because not everybody can just go and form an indie studio. It's
of course, yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have the funding, especially when you're a person of color or a woman, trying to get that funding in the first place. It's really, really hard. But I am seeing some indie studios pop up from the layoffs, and that's something I'm really, really excited about. And I hope next year I'll be able to hear more from them and see their games as they're progressing throughout this year. But for this year specifically, like there's just some really amazing games that are coming out that I think people are really going to enjoy seeing in the showcase. And I don't want to give too many away, but one that comes to mind is Dark Web Streamer by Chantel Ryan. That one looks so cool. I'm not a big horror game fan, because my way of dealing with horror or things that scare me is to make sarcastic comments and laugh at it. So it just kind of becomes a comedy instead, which is why I love games like Lethal Company. They help me unwind because I just laugh at my friends screaming.
It's actually, I was talking about Lethal Company yesterday with another guest. The episode is going to come out on the 29th of January, so way before this one comes out. But like he mentioned, we talked about Lethal Company. It was like, I have this hot take that Lethal Company is not a horror game; it's a comedy game. I'm like, yeah, that is probably right. Yep.
It's a comedy.
So shout out to Jake for saying something that we all think deep down.
It's great. But yeah, Dark Web Streamer, I am so excited for that one. Like that's like the perfect amount of spooky, and like I feel like it kind of drives the message home of like what is actually really out there on the internet. So it's like it's even scarier because it's based in some truth. And then Slay the Princess, I've been loving a lot too.
All right.
I loved that one by Black Tabby Games. They're amazing. They also made Scarlet Hollow, so if you haven't played Scarlet Hollow, go play that.
Heard about Scarlet Hollow. I will play it.
There's a lot. There's some games that I can't even talk about right now because they're actually being announced during the showcase. But those are the ones that are coming to mind that are just like, that's what I'm really, really excited for.
And actually, before we move on to anything else, we've been mentioning this showcase a few times, so I think it's the right time now to say what it is, when it's going to be, and where people can learn more about it, and then maybe we'll say it again towards the end. But yeah, what is this women-led games showcase?
Yeah, so the showcase will be happening from March 8th through 10th, and the first day is going to be on Women's Day, which is the 8th, and it's going to be a lot like how Wholesome Games is formatted, or if you've seen the Latin American Game Showcase, which I really recommend you go check out. My dog is like stealing from the counter. She's determined to be in the shot. What are you doing? But yeah, it's going to be, the first day is going to be a lot like Wholesome Game Showcase. So we're going to have, announcements, premieres, we're going to be sharing demos and things like that, and trailers and things like that. And then day 2 is going to be more developer interviews, so more of a deep dive into some of those games that you saw during the showcase from the developer's perspective, and we'll get a bit more of a deep dive into the stories and things like that. And then day 3 is going to be the same, but with content creators. so I'm a community manager and social media manager by day for
Mm-hmm.
another women-led studio, and I love working with content creators and influencers. Are like my favorite part of my job is giving them the game and seeing them react to it and like share it with their
Mm-hmm.
community, and just like
Yeah.
all the hijinks they get into and things like that. And I feel like they are a very, very important part of game development, especially for those indie studios, which most women-led studios are going to be indie, if not all of them. I don't think there's any studios out there that are double or triple A that are led by women. I don't know. Somebody correct me because I would love to talk to them. And so, when you're an indie studio, it's already hard as it is to get funding, right? You don't have that funding,
Yeah.
you don't have that marketing
Mm-hmm.
budget. So, having those content creators that are out there sharing your games and like your love for your game with their community, I feel like is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I really, really wanted to highlight women in that space. Also, because like I could not imagine, I could not imagine being an influencer or a content creator and like being on screen all the time. Like even this, I'm just like, oh, I'm on screen. Like I didn't put any
Oh,
makeup on. I had no time. I was like, no, this is
you've got
what
the
I'm
support
dealing
of your
with.
dogs anyway.
I've
So
got
that's
my dogs.
the
My
listeners.
dogs are great. They're
My
eating.
patrons are gonna love that.
She's actively eating something off of. Come here. Yeah, she's eating off the plate right now.
Yeah, and yes, listeners, you've heard it right. It's going to be in the same week that you hear this episode, because this episode is going to come out on the 4th of March, which right now feels like in forever. But because we're recording this on the 19th of January, a couple of months in advance, but it's going to come out on the same week that the Women-Led Games Showcase happens. So do check out those channels, but we'll get to it a bit later. So we were thinking about a couple of questions as we went, but I also collected some community shout outs because I posted about I posted a tweet. I will keep calling them tweets. I posted a tweet about indie games made by women, developed by women, and I got some really great names back from the community. We'll get to that, but first, I wanted to ask you, and we can discuss, but I guess my answers will be all the same. What's one game by a women-led studio that you've been enjoying lately?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I have been playing Slay the Princess a lot because like there's like so many different endings and things like that like it's really sad because everybody knows this that works in game dev, but you don't get time to play the games that you want to play. And my backlog is so long. Like I have a spreadsheet. It's sad. It's very sad. But also the one I work for, Critter Crops, is coming out very, very soon. I can't tell you the release date, but you'll hear about it very soon. I'm very excited to play that. I love Gordlettes. I think that it's adorable. I don't know if you've seen it. You might have, because I think it has been on Wholesome Games a few times. So you've probably seen it.
I might have seen it, yeah. Because I follow Wholesome Games a lot, so yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I haven't played the Crystalla demo yet, but I really, really want to. I've been following them since, like, I think before last year even. Just kind of been, like, stalking them and seeing what they're up to.
Yeah.
So that's when I want to get off here and like actually like get to play the demo. That will be really fun.
Yeah, and like one of those answers is mine too. Like in terms of a game that I've been enjoying lately, not a full game, but like Spilled by Lente, Lente Game Dev. It's so cute, so adorable. I played the demo some time ago. It was great.
And she's
also the
making
Crystalla
that whole
demo
thing by herself on a boat.
Yes,
like with
she
really
is.
crappy internet. I'm like, you're amazing.
Yeah, on a boat. Yeah, absolutely. And that's episode. What episode is it? Is it 17? Maybe. But I did interview Lente, so go look it up on Spotify or whatever you're listening this on, because you're going to find a beautiful interview with Lente. But yeah, definitely looking forward to that game. Definitely looking forward to Crystalla too, because the development studio, the girls behind it, they're just amazing. They're
amazing and like
just amazing people, and I had an interview with them too. So definitely looking forward to these two. In terms of women, so this is the third question that we had. Who are some women in the industry that inspire you? And I think I will start. It would probably be Chantal for me.
I
because
love her.
Like I just love following her Twitter profile.
I do.
I just love
anytime she tweets, I'm all over it.
yeah. It's just incredible. Yeah, it's so fun and so cheeky and also so real sometimes.
Yes,
most of the
absolutely.
times. So I would say, and that Thought Rise.
She's not afraid to say what she needs to say.
Exactly.
Thought Rise, I don't remember. I need to look. That's somebody, and I'm learning through you, and that's amazing. I love that I'm learning through you. I don't think I am following Thought Rise
Oh
unless
no,
I'm just not.
Thought Rise is Chantal herself.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
that's yeah.
See, I just know her as Chantal,
Well,
so I don't even know the
yeah,
tag.
me too. I didn't know when someone tagged her under my post. I was like, "Who's Thought Rise?" Oh,
Oh,
right. That's her. No, that's Chantal at ThoughtRise on Twitter, but
yes.
also at Dark Web Streamer, which is the game
Yes.
that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
What would be your pick, Char?
So I love, and she was one of the first people I wanted to interview for Women Led
Mm-hmm.
Games back last year, but she couldn't because she works for Insomniac, and she is the narrative director, I believe. Hold on, let me get her proper title.
Oh, okay.
But she wrote for Spider-Man Miles Morales, and
Mm-hmm.
she is writing for Wolverine. She's the narrative director on Wolverine. And she is also the author of the book Gamer Girls, and it is
Mm-hmm.
a deep dive history of women who basically built the video game industry, and it goes all the way
Mm-hmm.
back to like the beginning of the games industry, and it is amazing. I love her writing. I like. An aspiring like author, like for like
Mm-hmm.
a fantasy novel or something like that. Nothing like as awesome as what Mary Kenny does, but so like I like geek out over the way she writes. She just writes so beautifully, and it's so easy to read her books.
Mm-hmm.
So I highly encourage anybody who's interested in like just the history of games in general and where women kind of have been throughout that, which like since the beginning. Definitely pick up the book Gamer Girls. It's called Gamer Girls: 25 Women Who Built the Video Game Industry by Mary
And I'm
Kenny.
definitely going to pick that one up because I didn't know it existed. I know who you're talking about, but I didn't know she was the author of that book too.
Yeah, it's a great book, and I love her. Like I love her tweets, and I love all her writing. What she did for Spider-Man Miles Morales. My kids literally have played that game over and over and over again, like 50 times. I'm not even kidding. I don't even know how many hours. I need to go check on my PlayStation right now how many hours they have put into that game, just playing it over and over again. And I imagine they'll do the same thing with Wolverine. So, but yeah. And then who else? I'm just like, I got into like Mary Kenny mode, and now I can't think of anybody else. I'm like,
well, it's fine if you want to name
Kenny.
just one person because the title of this episode is "Dear Game Industry, Name a Woman," and I think
I named one.
Ding. Hello, everybody. Just a little note from me off the record that this episode is named after, and it's a tribute to, a beautiful article by Alissa Mercante, or if I had to pull out my Italian pronunciation / Latin Italian pronunciation, Alissa Mercante, who's the senior editor at Kotaku, and she wrote a beautiful article, published it last November 2023, called Dear Video Game Industry, Please Name a Woman. And I do recommend that you look it up and read it because it's a beautiful read, especially if you've been enjoying this episode so far. So I will put a link to it in the description of the episode because the name of this footnote wouldn't exist without it, most likely. But yeah, so back to the show.
We did it.
We named a few, and I'm about to name some more because I got some shout outs from the community that I want to make, which is Chantal, of course, at ThoughtRise plus Dark Web Streamer. There's Lente, who's on Twitter as Lente Game Dev. Sarah, who's Sari89. Boba Studios at Boba Studios. Gods of Twilight at Gods of Twilight. Ova Magica, or Ova Magica if it's in Spanish. And it's at Ova Magica, and then I suppose her name is Eileen. Eileen Mujeres I might be butchering your name. I'm sorry, but that's at Eileen Mujeres with the J before the I. I will put all of these names in the description of the episode, but these are all the names that came through when I asked the community to name a few women, and they're not even close the amount of people, of amazing women who are working in the games industry and have a dream and maybe are developing their own dream indie game. So if you want to name some more, feel free, Char. But if you're out of that the Mary mode, so to speak, Mary Kenny mode.
Yes, I love Mary Kenny. I have a list of studios. So I had almost 200 women-led or majority women studios apply for the Women Led Game Showcase, and I can only feature a little less than 30. because we're trying to keep the show under an hour.
Yeah.
So I could sit here and list all 200, but I think that's
we'll probably be here for a very long time.
Yeah. I will list a few from a few different genres that will be in the showcase, except there will be some that I cannot name because they're premieres.
Of course.
But yes, Scored Let by Anti Games, and I do not have their names. I just have their tags here for their studio names. I mean,
perfect.
So Gord Let's. One I'm really, really excited for is The Heirloom. They just had a successful Kickstarter a few months ago by Babubi Games. Babubi? I don't know how to say that. It's really cool looking. It reminds me a lot of like claymation, almost Tim Burton-y like animation with almost reminds me of Coraline a bit.
Coraline, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Coraline,
The animation is amazing. The characters, I believe they're all clay, created by clay and then animated. And it looks so cool, so beautiful. Critter Crops, the self promo. There's one called Memento, which I think you probably have seen in one of the Wholesome Games Showcase.
I've seen that too, yes.
Projected Dreams by Flawberry Studio is really neat. It's a fun puzzle game where you're playing with shadows, like you're doing shadow puppets, but you're using the different items throughout your environment to create a specific shadow on the wall that ends up telling a story.
Yeah.
And that one is so fun, so neat. And there's one I found on Kickstarter by Andrea Love, and she is actually a stop animation artist that decided she wanted to make a game, and she's making it completely out of felt. It's stop animation felt, and it's called Feltopia, and it is really, really, really cool.
This reminds me of another game that is being made by another female developer, I think from Eastern Europe, I believe, which is all embroidered. I don't remember that, but it is. I don't remember the name of the game, but I've seen it. So if you look embroidered game online, you'll probably see it because it went super viral. But yeah, so I mean, if you want to support women in the games industry, and you should, then go check out all of these accounts, follow them, try out their games. Maybe only try out the ones that you really like, because I mean, everybody has their own taste, but still do try and see if they fancy you, if they tickle your fancy and whatnot, because it is so important to support indie developers in general, and in this case, even more specifically, women developers who have a dream and want to develop their dream game. So this is not just a list that we made for the sake of it. We want you to go out and try and find these people because it's so important. And I think we've covered so many things during this episode. I think we can actually wrap it up right there. What I would say is, what I hope transpired from this episode is the importance of recognizing and celebrating women in the gaming industry. Because just like you, if you're a woman developer who's listening, or if you're a male developer, if you're just an ally, just like you, those people have dreams. They have their own aspirations. They have their own things that they want to be in life. And it's so important to celebrate these people and to be just decent human beings instead of just being gatekeepers, which is something that I live by and that I will stand by for the rest of my life. So thank you, Char, for a beautiful conversation together, for a beautiful chat. Thank you for naming some women as we did. And for some parting words, where can other people learn more about women-led games? And this time in your case, what is the best way to support you?
Yeah, you can check out womenledgames.com or check us out on Twitter at womenledgames. We will be announcing soon kind of, when the showcase is going to be starting and who will be in the showcase, who will be sponsoring. And just tune in, share, check out all the amazing games that we're going to be sharing, and check out the developer deep dives the next day and the content creators. There will be quite a few people playing demos as well. Co-streamers and things like that. So if you want to check them out and watch them play some of the games before you buy, which is understandable, I feel like that's how most people do things now, is they want to see their favorite streamer play those games. Yeah. There will be quite a few checking out the games, so definitely watch them, see the games, get those demos, wishlist them on Steam. That's like the biggest, the best thing you can do is go over and give your Steam traffic over to those games, get that algorithm getting all happy. That would be the best thing you can do for the showcase.
Perfect. Yeah. And of course, as a reminder, this episode will come out on the 4th of March, so you may be listening it on the week that the Women Led Games showcase actually takes place. So go to Women Led Games, at Women Led Games, I believe is your handle. Just all one word, and try and take part in the showcase in any way you can, because it's so important. So again, thank you so much, Char. I wish you all the best with the showcase in a couple months, but I'm going to be promoting the hell out of it. So I'm going to share as much as I can, all the beautiful developers and games that come out of it. So yes, I can't wait for it. But yeah, best of luck.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, and that's a wrap on Footnote number 5 with Women Led Games on Dear Games Industry, Please Name a Woman. It was a beautiful chat with Char. Thank you so much for taking part. And of course, please, you guys who are listening out there, remember to check out the Women Led Games Showcase, which is going to take place this week, if you're listening to this episode on the week of the 4th of March 2024. So if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show and make sure to leave a rating, because it always helps. And also make sure to go to theindiediaries.com, where you can find all of my links, including links to Ko-fi and Patreon, if you would like to support the show. Anything small will help, because this is entirely the show is entirely listener supported at the moment, and it will likely remain so for quite a while. Again, I would like to thank Char so much for being such an amazing guest. We've had a beautiful conversation. We named some amazing developers, and I truly, truly cannot wait for the Women Led Games Showcase. If you guys are indie game developers and would like to take part in the show of any gender, male, female, non-binary, please get in touch. I would love to hear from you and tell your story to my amazing listeners from all around the world.